as far as unionist perceptions were. And if they stayed out, maybe the unions could have finished the job. Simple as that.
In West Belfast, the IRA was criticised by some for failing to prevent the burnings of August 1969.
There was no IRA there. There was no weapons there, and left the people unprotected. The IRA were not capable of protecting the people of 69.
Amid the recriminations that followed, the IRA split into official and provisional wings. Brendan Hughes was drawn to the new provisional's promise to defend nationalist areas. It was led by an old friend of his father's.
My father's great friend was a man called Billy McKee. We almost felt like genuflecting passing Billy's house because my father thought so much of him. I was approached by a guy, John Joe McGee, who was an ex-paratrooper, about joining the IRA. We were brought in and advised of what joining the IRA meant. Basically, it boiled down to either you're going to jail or you're going to die. That's what you can look forward to. I then became a volunteer in D Company 2nd Battalion, Belfast Brigade.
This combat zone was next door to the heavily loyalist Shankill Road and less than 400 yards from the city centre.
D Company 2nd Battalion embraced Lower Falls and Divis. From the Grosvenor Road down to the bottom of Townsend Street, the Falls Road, on Townsend Street over to the end of the corner of the Grosvenor Road, both sides of the Grosvenor Road, up as far as the Springfield Road. That was D Company.
After the swearing in, there'd be history classes, there'd be then going to weaponry and explosive classes. And that's where you found your niche then. What do you want to be? You want to be a gunman or do you want to be a bomber?
The RUC and the B Specials and the Stormont regime were initially the main target. The first operations were carried out against the RUC, and this consisted of a £5 charge of gelignite strapped onto a butcher's hook, hang the £5 charge on the door, light the fuse, and run like fuck.
The summer of 1970 gave the Provisional IRA a chance to show that it could prevent a repeat of the Loyalist burnings of 1969. The Orange marching season was in full swing, and Belfast was like a tinderbox. In East Belfast, an unruly loyalist crowd returning from an Orange parade gathered outside St. Matthew's Catholic Church. IRA gunmen, led by Billy McKee, were waiting.
The Republican narrative of that day is that the Loyalists were about to invade the Short Strand and overwhelm a small Catholic enclave. Therefore, the IRA repelled the attack. However, the Loyalists coming back home into East Belfast, they say, no, we were fired on first. Many shots from St. Matthew's, and then all hell broke loose.
I was there the night in 1970 when 3 people were shot dead. I can remember a guy getting shot, and it was, it wasn't like the movies. And the blood spurted about 3 feet. It was horrendous. The noise, the sort of fear, the atmosphere, it was incredible stuff. It was an absolute war zone.
The lesson that we learned was that was never going to happen again to us. There was an organisation, UVF, based on the old style UVF of 1912. And that's whenever I introduced and formed the UVF in East Belfast, for the protection of the people.
Alarmed at the IRA's stand at St. Matthew's, Unionists demanded that the British Army move against Republican areas. That would lead a week later to a confrontation on the Falls Road, which would change the course of the Troubles.
The house was wrecked. The house was an absolute shambles. You couldn't even live in it.
The black and tans was bad enough, but they never had to put their foot on a holy picture.
The British Army's aggressive house raids enraged the local community and provoked a fierce response.
That whole day there was a continual battle. Blast bombs been thrown at the British. Later on that afternoon, a helicopter arrived and announced over loudhailers that the Lower Falls was now under curfew, and anyone found on the streets would be shot.
The British Army curfew posed a formidable challenge to Hughes's small, poorly armed IRA unit.
There was 11 of us at that time in D Company, and we were going to break the curfew. We, one by one, we came out of Service Street and made our way along Service Street as a foot patrol. And the British immediately opened up. The Falls had been surrounded by British troops. We took cover in houses and continued to fire.
Stand still, you're under arrest for breaking the curfew.
I had run out of ammunition, I had no ammunition left.
Hughes recalled waiting out the curfew, which lasted 36 hours, in a local house.
And I was just sitting, waiting and waiting and waiting. Then I heard this noise, and it got closer and closer. Seen hundreds and hundreds of people passing the window with prams and children, and I could distinctly hear the people shouting, "Come out, the curfew's over." The weapons were handed over to the women who put them in the pram, and we mingled with the crowd and made our way out of the area.
Not only were people locked up in their houses for 36 hours, they had no food. The Brits raided all the shops and took all the groceries out and destroyed the place.
The Lower Falls curfew was a military disaster. It was the catalyst that turned the community against the army. Had that not happened, we may never have had 38 years of conflict.
That was the point of no return. After that, the British Army were getting no more tea in any nationalist area of the north.
As nationalists were turning against the British Army, many unionists felt the authorities were not being tough enough on the civil rights movement and the IRA. Some decided to take the law into their own hands.
The growth in paramilitarism came from vigilantism, that you were under attack and you were going to do something about it, and it was one step away from defence to attack.
What motivated them was fury at the way in which they felt they'd been let down by the Protestant established political elite. They believed that if you were going to fight the IRA, then you had to do it with muscle, not with brains.
When I try to look back on what happened with me, I think I was inching in the direction of having to do something about this.
While David Irvine was